Hi, I'm Jay, and today we're going to take a look at a new old vise, and then we're going to do an unboxing. Stay tuned. So, good afternoon. I wanted to show a new vise that I recently purchased and came in the mail today. I thought I would actually just open the box on screen, kind of initial reaction. I bought it for a specific purpose, and I'm not getting rid of my trusty old Universal 2, but I will be using this new vise in the future, fairly near future, tying mostly larger sized hooks, bass jigs, those larger diameter wire hooks. I have a vise that will do a little bit better job than my Universal 2, but I wanted to show you something new, but it's old. Universal 2. Just got this in the mail. I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to put it on the website. I'm going to do all the things that you do to it that like I showed in my Universal vise video. Cleaning it up internally, a little bit of oil, getting it so it works perfectly. One thing I noticed about this vise, and I'm not 100% sure if there's anybody out there that really knows the history of Universal and the vices. I have a little bit of experience, a little bit of knowledge, right? But I've always thought that the Universal 2s more than likely were the manufacturing was farmed out to different machine shops, because a lot of the replacement parts that I have for vices, you can tell, aren't 100% exactly the right size. You kind of have to, if I was changing the jaws in a vise, if I bought a used vise that the jaws were damaged, I do have older jaws that I can swap out, but you kind of have to play. Some jaws are a little bit longer, some are a little shorter, and it was small details. So of course I always thought that they had their parts made at different companies, but I have one, and I haven't seen this, and I've had my fair share of Universal 2s. Let me switch over. So on my desk, this is my old faithful, tried and true, the vise that I've been tying on close to 20 years now. The vise I had before this was also a Universal 2 that I tied on for additional 20 years. So this is my second vise, Universal 2, though I've had many over the years. I have two specifically extra, just in case this one breaks. I have one that was always explained to me that it was a prototype. It has the locking mechanism. There's one at the 9 o'clock and there's one at the 12 o'clock position, so you could lock your jaws on the quarter turn. So I have that in my collection. I have my dad's the vise that he had on his table for a decade, right? But I got this one, and it's very nice. There's very little wear on it. There's not even a whole lot of rust, or a little bit of rust on the jaws, but that can be cleaned up pretty easily. It was actually swapped over, right, put in backwards, so it was left-handed, and I turned it back. It does look like it's missing the, hold on, I'm doing show and tell and can't even show and tell. It does look like it's missing. There's typically, most always, some sort of bushing right here, a little washer, a little skinny washer. That's not on there. And then in the front here, the same thing. There's usually some sort of small washer right behind here. Now, there's very little play with this, so I think that also kind of goes to show that it's had very, very little use, if any. This is a nice solid vise. Little play back and forth. I moved my camera the other day, so it's not quite, it looks centered on my screen, but put my hands in the wrong space. Little bit of play back and forth. That's not abnormal. Just adding the little rubber bushing like I have on mine will take up a lot of that play. And then a small detail, and I just noticed this on a few that I've had over the years, and I think it's mostly the way the thread is started, but this indexing piece here, the spring is nice and tight. There's very little play on this at all. The hole that the little post goes through is not deformed. On mine you can see that it's actually slightly ovaled, but I prefer, and it's just because my last two, this one and my last vise, this indexing post that you see here at the 11 o'clock is typically at the 5 o'clock. It's not necessarily, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. I think what happens is whichever machine shop started the threads on this, because this piece will actually screw out, started them at a different position. So when you screw it all the way in, this is now stopped at the, what I would call the 11 o'clock position, while typically it's at the 5 o'clock position. And I've seen that difference on a few different universal 2s. Something like that is a very small, minute thing. But then if you can see here, this shaft is an inch longer than what is typical, which means that the jaws on this are about an inch longer, because the jaws, the end of the jaws, screw into this wheel. Everything else, it is the same size, and I would bet that this piece is interchangeable. The only problem is, or not problem, but there is a small detail of, if I did interchange these parts, I'd also have to swap out the jaws, because these jaws are made to fit this length post. So just a small detail. There's a small blemish on the casting here, not a big deal. A few scratches from age. This is probably kept in a drawer or a box somewhere for, I don't know, 30-40 years, but very nice universal 2. So my plan is to clean this up, and I'll have it posted on the website. It also came with the universal 2's bobbin rest and direction book that comes with it. The manual, though it's not torn or anything, but it definitely has some wear and tear. But let me remove my vise. And let me switch back. So, what we got in the mail today, like I said, this is going to be specifically for larger bass jigs and hooks that have a larger diameter. But I got the Peak LIRS number 3. This is the smaller head. You might see this vise listed. Sometimes they just call it the small vise, the LIRS small. Sometimes they refer to it as the number 3. I believe the number 3 and the number 1 are the same size head. I think what they refer to as the number 1 is just older and maybe not the same let's see, this detail right here. So I think on the number 1 this post is just all straight. It doesn't have this extra metal piece, but we'll kind of look at that as I unbox it. And of course I got the brass screw kit just to pimp it out just a little bit. So let's just open this real quick. Completely unscripted today, guys. I was just so excited. I knew it came over the weekend, and the postman left a tag in the mailbox, so I stopped at the post office this afternoon to pick this up. Box very nice. Peak Rotary PRV Series LIRS number 3 hook retention assembly. So you get a little bit of one-page directions. Couple Allen wrenches holding everything together. This has the regular nice foam. Everything's in the box. Has its own little location. I did get the C-clamp version because that's how I like to attach the vise to my bench, and I also have at least 2 other bases that I can use if I want to take this and travel with it, etc. The C-clamp is actually a nice design, and you can switch this around for a wider table, but I think this will be plenty. Let's set it up here. There's a set screw that will hold the shaft of the vise, lock it into place. So I'm just moving it to the back hole, the hole closest to me. Now I've played with Peak vises in the past. Buddy of mine ties on a Peak, and they're a decent vise. Slightly stiff, but now it's my understanding. Let's switch this over. Now it's my understanding that this piece here is pressed on, so the black head is screwed into this piece right here, and I believe that this is pressed on. The number 1 vise, or what I've seen called the number 1 vise, is this same setup where, but it's one complete shaft, and the shaft has the cutout to line this head up, and you screw it on. So I don't know if one's better than the other, or if it's an old version. I suspect that it just has a little bit of a design change at some point. I don't know. You know, I don't know anybody at Peak. I haven't talked to anybody at Peak. Now I'll play with the height that I actually want this at. Of course, I would want something similar to the height of my universal, just because I know that that was a nice fit for my body size, right? And how high I could raise my drafting chair. So one of the deciding factors of why I got this was, you know, I was looking for something that will hold the larger hooks, but I do want something that's parallel to the bench, and because I will be tying primarily jigs and hairwing streamers. And cost was probably the third thing to consider. Peak is a nice middle of the road type vise. If you have a little bit of a budget, if you can afford a little bit something, these retail for $254.95. So they're a good vise to start with. They're also a good vise that if you chose to start with them, more than likely you're going to be tying on it for a long time. If I bought one of these specifically for fly tying, any of the Peak rotary vices, more than likely I would have gotten to a point in my tying career, right, where you want something a little bit nicer, but you still hold on to something like this because it would make a great travel vise. Not too, you know, when I go places, I don't always like to take my presentation, my what's it called? My Ranzetti presentation 3000, because it's a little expensive. I don't want to necessarily keep that in the car or carry it somewhere. So I just added the brass screw. So I'm going to have to do something about the position of my waist bag, just because I have it set up so I can spin it out. It hits the bottom of this vise. Not that it's a bad thing. I just need to, when I'm using this, I like to have, or when I'm tying, I like to have the bag right in front of me. But we're not going to tie anything right now. I was just terribly excited. I wanted to play with the vise. So we loosen, to put a hook in here, we loosen the whatever this is called. So what I have here is a Trokar hook. I believe it's a 3/0. So it's a pretty heavy duty bass jig. Hold that in place. We want to make sure that it's parallel to the table and the shaft of the vise. This is something I noticed in pictures. So You would think that to put the jig in so the shaft of the jig is parallel to the shaft of your vise, which is parallel to your tabletop, that the angle of the head should be nice and straight. But the one thing that I noticed is placing the hook in the jaws, there's a notch at the top, there's a notch at the bottom, and then the metal piece in the middle pulls the hook against the jaws of the vise, I guess you can call it. Pinches it this way, which is nice, but because of the curve of the hook, I placed it in, I placed the hook in and it's secure, but I had to angle the black part of the jaws, I had to point it down just a little bit. You can see here where this sticks up just a little bit. And I noticed that in pictures. I could leave it and not do anything with it. But I am half tempted to just file this down so it's the same plane as the top of this shaft. Just thinking about it, I don't know. Just so I know that when the top of this is flat, I know that that's automatically parallel with the vise. I don't know. Well, we'll play with it. We'll see. And that is sturdy. I can get some nice thick thread and really pull on that. That won't be an issue at all. There is a little bit of, there's grease on this, and I had this, that's another thing. Before I start using this, I should really wipe down the tool, because I have seen reviews before and people have talked about the amount of grease that they have on these just so they stay nice in the box. But yeah, I can already see my fingerprints all over it because my fingers were dirty. There's no movement. There's no, the tolerance on this is pretty good. Rotates freely, it rotates straight. Even without the brass thumb screw here engaged, this does have some drag on it. It's not going to spin. Like, I can't just spin it. I can turn it, but it won't just spin on me, which is nice, because really when we're tying, for me, I don't really use the rotary function of a vise unless I was tying streamers, maybe. But I do use the rotary function for things like turning the jig so you can get access to one side and then the other, so you can look at both sides to make sure they're nice and uniform. But very nice. This piece, I believe, is for the bobbin cradle, which I don't believe this comes with. I think you have to buy that separately. Which I may or may not do. That's something that I probably would wish was in the box. Bobbin cradle. Should be a no-brainer, right? But there it is. This isn't the video that I was talking about recently of using a new vise, but this is the vise I was talking about. I was just so excited about getting it that I wanted to undo, you know, to open the box and play with it a little bit. I thought I'd turn on the cameras. Babbled a little bit, right? But I hope you found it at least interesting, the show and tell. So the Peak LIRS number 3, or what they call the small vise. That's what I'm using today. So complete disclosure, this isn't a paid promotion, right? I paid for this with my own money, full retail. Ordered it through the Fly Shack, which is, they were one of the only people that I saw that actually had the LIRS still in stock. You find a lot of places online that list it, but then the C-clamp version will be out of stock, or they only have the really big ones. The small head, I knew in the description. The Trokar hooks that I'm using are probably pushing the maximum opening on these jaws. But I didn't want to go any bigger, not because of the cost, but just the general size and the amount of tying I was going to be doing on this vise versus all the other types of jigs that I would tie, which are still going to be done on that Universal 2. What do we got coming up? I did get a second box in the mail today, all new threads, so we're going to be talking about that as well. That I'm going to give a little bit more thought into, not just turn on the cameras and you know, just start talking just because I'm excited about it. I'm going to turn the cameras off. I'm going to look at it, see if this is nice enough to edit and just throw up online. My little show and tell for my shiny new vise. But I think that's going to do it for us today. Keep an eye on the website, jworthhandtied.com. It'll be a week or two, but I'm going to clean up this one vise that I got. Add the rubber O-rings, shine it up a little bit, replace any of the bushings that are missing on it, and I'm going to have a Universal 2 for sale on the website, jworthhandtied.com. As always, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. I'm going to play with my vise a little bit longer. I'm a little bit excited to get this. I'm going to tie on it, but I'm going to do that off camera. Until next time, guys, keep tying in tight lines.